Morning everybody, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone is just in front of me here, and this is episode 161 of Tottenham Walks, or Walkies, as Bugsy likes it to be called. I hope you're all happy and healthy, doing the things that you love. Please do me a favour, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. First and foremost, how happy were you to see Arsenal get, let's call a spade, get buried yesterday? The bottle job has commenced. I'll be honest, guys, never in my life before have I been so engaged in a game that didn't involve Tottenham. I was pumping my fist, screaming and shouting at the TV, and I was over the moon when Man City won. Usually I'm someone who has the mindset of, don't worry about anybody else, worry about Tottenham, what will be with the rest of it. But for some reason, yesterday, I was a Manchester City fan for 90 minutes. I know why the reason is, obviously don't want Arsenal to win the league, but in years gone by, I've never been that, sucked into that kind of mindset. All the way back to when they were awesome, I never really cared. I was worried about Tottenham. Not so much yesterday. And I don't know whether it's because I now these days spend time on neutral fan channels with rivals where the banter's fierce and the clips are always shared, or whether it's because, and I think this second version is probably more likely, because Tottenham's season has been such an underwhelming, frustration, I guess, with expectations being here probably unreasonably high and the reality coming in a lot lower, thus far at least. With injuries, the frequency of injuries to key players in key positions, the flip-flop form, up and down, hot and cold, hit and miss, the lack of energy that bothers me more and more from our coach, and the general kind of divisiveness and constant fighting amongst our fans around who's to blame. We have to find someone to blame, and it all has to go in one direction, otherwise it dilutes the narrative. Can't stand it. But all of that, I think, is a consequence in no small part because of the rise to seniority, the rise to power of Arsenal. Going from a team who bottled the Champions League last season to a team who 3 weeks ago looked like they could win the Premier League at a canter, because nobody was really offering much in the way of competition. Manchester City looked off the ball for the most part of the first half of the season. Liverpool and Chelsea nowhere to be seen. Newcastle coming up, but not there. Tottenham, as I just said, having their own problems all in the late stages of 2022, and possibly going to have more going forward. The only team that looked like their form was consistent and powerful was Manchester United. But Manchester City seemingly have taken that frustrations that have been thrown, of the allegations that are thrown at them, and used it to kind of galvanise some kind of team spirit. And with Pep Guardiola almost pivoting back to tried and tested formations and experimenting less, has somehow found breathed new life into their team, just as Arsenal are going through their own blip, whether it's a mini blip or the beginnings of a bottle job. We'll wait and see. But like I say, I think that their rise has affected Tottenham fans probably more than we like to admit. Certainly affected me more than I like to admit. And hopefully their fall will be a soother, like a calm influence as we move forward. Because the second half of the season, there's still many stories that are left to be told with regard to Tottenham. We're still in the Champions League, still in the FA Cup. The problem for me right now within the squad is if you're going to have a problem, at least it's in the area where we have the most talent. The lack of creativity, the lack of ability to generate things in the final third of late, falls for my liking at the feet of the forward line. And that is the area of the team where we have the most strength and the most options right now. So over to the coach and those players to figure out a way to generate more execution, better execution, create more chances, and convert more of them into goals, and we might be okay. We might be okay. Listen, there's not a lot to talk about today, so what I would say is the MSP thing. So I put the video out early yesterday, and after that there was kind of updates throughout the day. Started off with the 3.75 billion, and we didn't know what the debt on the structure of the deal looked like, whether it was writing off the debt. If so, how would that happen? Sometimes when you have that long-term structured debt, you can't get out early, or you have to pay massive penalties if you do. Also, what would be the benefit of doing that? Because it's very reasonable rates given the current economic climate. Are they low? Are they going to put more debt on the club? Or are they going to replace the debt? Or are they going to wipe it off? We don't know. There was no clarity in the deal, and anyone that suggested that they knew, who was just using that Financial Times article as their basis for their opinion, I think they're speculating. But in any event, as the day went on, first and foremost, it looked like, I think Sky Sports said they wouldn't be interested in dealing at that price. Then they said Daniel Levy would want to probably stay on and remain in his position. And then later on, the BBC said there's no interest in selling the club because they still want to commit to finishing off the project, the redevelopment plans for the area, and also try and take Tottenham to higher places and better things. So, look, first and foremost, no deal has even been, no bid has even been presented. The article just said that they're thinking about putting together a plan to put a bid in a few weeks. Almost like the way Tottenham Hotspur's transfer news is reported. We're thinking about considering possibly monitoring the situation of eventually putting in a suggested bid for a player. That's all that's come out of the FT article. Nothing's been suggested that there's a bid being put in yet, but they've obviously then gone and asked around, and the news or the noise that's come back is they're probably not interested. One thing I would say, guys, is there's always a price. There's always a price. Everyone's got their number. Whether that number is 4 billion, 5 billion, 6 billion, who knows? At some point, Daniel Levy and Joe Lewis would say, all right, thank you very much. We'll be on our way. But what number does it have to get to for that to happen? And how would they find the difference? We don't even know yet how they're finding the first 3.75 billion, if it goes ahead, if the bid is made, whether there's debt attached to it and what the structure of that looks like. And if they had to pay an extra billion or an extra 2 billion, would those people find that money from their own coffers, or would they put it in additional debt and leverage it against the assets of the club? And if the answer is yes to the latter part of that question, then to me the answer is no, absolutely not, to the question of, do you want these guys to take over Tottenham Hotspur? Like, I don't want any additional debt, and you shouldn't either. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't. And anyone of the fans who are so dead set on getting Daniel Levy and ENIC out at any and all cost, I say be careful what you wish for, because there's no guarantees that anything changes apart from more money that has to come from the club to pay off the interest on debts. What happens if the new owners come in and take dividends? How are you going to feel about that? These guys have already intimated that they are interested in the property side of the of what Tottenham Hotspur can offer with the planning permissions. These guys could be ENIC Mark II, just with less business acumen and worse timing in terms of utilising debt to pay for your activities. I'm not saying that is the case. They could be brilliant, right? They could come in, maybe the Abu Dhabi side of the fund, who probably won't need debt, right? If that's, history tells you anything about the money that comes from there, maybe they'll come in and just figure it all out internally. If there's no debt attached to this deal, if it's just a simple transition of ownership, and even if we keep the same debt that we already have, but new owners want to come in and, you know, continue to take the club forward, continue to make us sustainable, but at the same time have a better risk profile, I'm all for it. I'm okay with it. I'm not all for it, I'm okay with it. But it all depends on what that looks like. In summary, there's nothing really to talk about. All the different news items, whether it's BBC or Sky or whoever, they're all taking the story that the FT dropped and then making their own presumptions around the outcomes of any potential bid. But those bids haven't been made yet. You can't reject or accept what hasn't been offered. And so there's just pure speculation. So once again, it's just another day in the life of a Tottenham Hotspur fan where we talk about things that may or may not happen and usually don't. And there's always the same divided reactions from fan bases or sections of the fan base who have their own agendas and their own entrenchments. I see people frothing at the mouth and spitting fury and venom about Daniel Levy and ENIC once again, because how dare they reject a bid for a second time. I mean, they haven't rejected a bid for the second time because there is no bid, and that was made clear by the FT in the initial article. It's just potentially a bid on the way, and we'll find out what happens when it happens. So a little bit of common sense sometimes doesn't go amiss. Like, share and subscribe, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Take it easy. Bye bye.